quite common in the property investment industry that people don't have access to enough capital, and yeah, that obviously is a problem, sort of a catch-22. So do you put the deals together and then raise the capital, or do you raise the capital and then put the deals together? And that's a fair question, and I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's more to do with personality and risk tolerance than it is actually having a right answer there. I'm one who puts the deal together, then raises the capital. But we've always got our own funds in place if we can't go out to the market and raise it, which is quite rare nowadays. But if I was starting out again, I'd still put the deal together first. And when the relevant parties say, you know, have you got proof of funds? Generally speaking, I'll go to a bridging company or my broker or one of my brokers and just say, you know, can you sort a letter out or something proving that I can raise the money for this? And that usually ticks that box. But the other side of that coin as well is that having too much capital is also sometimes a problem. And it's something we're actually going through at the moment. And it's all relative. But if we have, let's say, £1 million ready to deploy, and we haven't got access to the deals that will give enough return on that money. So if we're borrowing at 10%, let's say for an example, and they want that money back in 12 months, and we haven't got access to the deals to turn that round and not guarantee, but you know, produce the deals and turn a higher return than that 10%, then that is also a problem. So it's not just about not having enough capital. Sometimes you actually have too much capital, particularly if you're actually in the investment business where you have to utilise all of the money that you've got available to you in order to keep your investors satisfied. You know, just sitting there in a bank account, allowing inflation to erode it away, that ain't the best idea, to be fair. So, you know, we're at the moment got about 6 or 7, I think, in legals at the moment, and 2 that we've got going through in Peterborough we're using bridging finance for, and because they've come in at under market value, we're borrowing against market value rather than against the purchase price, and we're going to flip both those onto the open market. So we should turn a nice, in my opinion, 35% net margin on those. And we're borrowing on the bridging loan. The bridging loan, including fee, works out at about 13% per annum, but we should be out of that loan in about 4 months, 5 months. So they're good deals. So that's an example of having access to the capital and being able to turn profits even on fairly high interest rates. We've got development projects going through planning, which can be a bit more sticky because obviously there's more moving parts reliant on different bureaucratic entities to make decisions, which can take a long time, and sometimes the hurdles that are thrown up can't be overcome, and very often go against what they're actually proposed to do, set up for. One side of the mouth they're talking about creating more homes and affordable accommodation. The other side of the mouth they are trying to stop developers, cause as many issues as possible. So yes, that's a little moan at those guys. But the developments that we've going on, we got bridging finance on them. We will flip 2 of those into development finance, whether we use the same lender or a different lender, I'm not sure on that. Probably flip the 2 bigger developments we've got going on because we're not too happy with the bridges. They're very slow and cumbersome. So yeah, I mean, access to bridging is very, very possible for more or less everybody, in my opinion. It goes on the deal, so if you get a decent deal, you shouldn't be able to not raise the money. It shouldn't be an issue, whether that's private funding, whether that's bridging finance, even buy-to-let loans if you're just planning on holding it for the long term. But don't just keep in mind that having too much capital can become a problem. It's not as much of a problem as not having any, but it is its own issue. In the same way as someone who doesn't have any money in general, that is a problem because they need to live. And someone with lots of money fears losing it. So things just create their own issues. Problems never end, they're continual. But when you see the world in such a way that, you know, everything's like a learning experience and a learning curve, these hurdles are just there to be overcome and transcended, if you like, in order to just expand yourself, get bigger, get better, and sort of fulfill potential. Because it's easy to sit in comfort zones and just do what's comfortable. And maybe because I'm in that stage of my life and being a bloke as well, where you just go after the world and try and create things, build things, you know, essentially go to battle with the world. Maybe when I get older that won't happen. I know some older guys, some of the lads I go to the gym with and play squash with, they say, yeah, it's an age thing. And I, you know, contemplate on these things quite a lot, like quite philosophical and stuff. And some of those guys in their mid-50s, early 60s, some of them, they're saying, yeah, we were like that 20 years ago. But I'm sitting here now and I can't say that would be a possibility. I don't know how I could just sit there and do nothing. And they don't sit there and do nothing. That's not digging them out at all. It's just my personality. I can only sit here and say, unless I'm driving towards some sort of purpose, whether that be, you know, doing what I'm doing now and building a property investment, let's call it empire for the lack of a better term, and you know, putting zeros on the bottom line of the balance sheet, whether that's the case or whether it's simply, you know, entering a fishing competition when I'm 70 and trying to win that, I need to be getting out of bed to do something. And generally speaking, right now, giving value to young entrepreneurs who are looking to get into their own businesses, and people, you know, seeing the world potentially in a different way to what they've seen in the past, where opportunity is abundant. You can literally become an abundant thing whereby everything is just flowing out of you. It's quite difficult to talk about unless you're actually in that state. Like, abundance isn't something you think about. Abundance is like a state of being where you just give everything away. And that's sort of the way that I see the world. I don't understand this, even in negotiations when people hold information back. I sort of get it in a strategic sense, but all I've ever found is if you're just completely brutally honest with people, then there's never an issue. The honesty always wins in the end. It's like, if you just tell people where you want to be and what you can't go above and the terms that you want, you generally end up winning, or if that's the right term, you end up getting what you want out of it. So I just think the whole zero-sum game stems from a lack of abundant thinking, and not to make a cliche out of it, or you know, something you read out of a book, just something hollow and shallow. It's something very real. An abundant mind creates opportunity in all instances. It's something it does naturally. Whereas zero-sum games, where one wins and one loses, that's sort of most conversations you have. There's always a winner and a loser. There's always like an entitled sense of selfishness all the time. But it doesn't need to be like that. And the idea of win-win, although again it's a bit of a cliche, it's completely natural when you hold conversations in a certain way. When I do property deals with people, most of the deals are based on price. But actually, if you do them on terms and you say, okay, I can hit your price, but you're going to have to give me a couple of years to pay you, for example, the whole dynamics of the conversation changes. And if it is based on price, then we can do it really quickly for you. And there's always some win-win negotiation there. It's not me beating you up or you beating me up. There's always a mutual agreement going on. just been out with the dog and been thinking about what I do in the business in relation to my personality and what I could be doing differently, or at least outsourcing that work to other people in order to, keep in alignment with the character. Because what I tend to do is try and take on too much stuff that could easily be done by other people, where my time and effort is much better spent. So I'm good at, bringing people together, investors, raising the money, working with sellers and buyers, putting deals together, deal making capacity. And yet the more time I spend on a building site, the more problems are going to arise. So I tend to stay away from that. And it made me think, very basic really, that just do what you're good at and pass off everything that doesn't quite fit your personality type. And it's not a complex, difficult thing to get your head around, but very often we just overcomplicate these things and just like, oh no, I can't afford to do it, or no, I can take it on and I'll master it and then I'll outsource it, or something like that. Oh, I've got to create a booklet so that I can hand the booklet over to, I've heard that one, I think that was from Michael Gerber's book, and everyone's just sort of copied it. You don't need to do a lot of all this stuff, man. A lot of people nowadays, they learn so much off YouTube, and they promote their services as self-employed people on People Per Hour or Fiverr.com or one of those websites where they just advertise their services on there, and you can get really good people who can do the work, such as, I don't know, in my industry, they could do social media management, digital marketing. If you've got online products, they can do a lot of all that stuff, website design. I know guys who use VAs, virtual assistants, over in the Philippines to drive a load of leads online, manage their Airbnb stock if they do that, and that can be done from all over the world nowadays. I see myself often driving from A to B to C and meeting people that there's never a deal to be done, or I go on site and I meet builders. I don't know what half the lingo is that's being said, and I have to relay that to other people. And my time is much better spent doing things that I'm good at. I see myself doing it all the time. I see others doing it all the time and then get frustrated that they're not moving quick enough. It really doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on, really, and I'm as guilty as everybody.